Believe it or not, I started in the library field over 40 years ago as a library assistant at the then St. Lucie Secondary School, which you now know as the Darrell Jordan Secondary. I was very fortunate in that the headmaster at the time, Mr. Jordan, saw how inexperienced I was and made provisions for me to intern at the public library on Corey Street. After that, he made arrangements for me to be among the first intake for the library assistance course, which was offered at the Barbados Community College. It was then that I decided to make librarianship my career. I enjoyed helping the students. I realized I had a real aptitude for the job, and I basically loved it. So it became my career choice. The next step was to complete my first degree. After completing this course of study at UWI Hill in History and Sociology, I went on to the Barbados Community College as Library Assistant 1. The next step then would be to become a professional librarian. In 1990, I won a scholarship offered by the International Development Research Center, a Canadian agency. This agency was offering 4 scholarships to persons across the Caribbean to read for the master's degree in library studies at UWI Mona. And I was among the 4 lucky ones. After an 18-month intense program, I was officially a qualified librarian. My next job posting was at the Caribbean Broadcasting Corporation, where I stayed for several years before moving to my position here at the Barbados Museum and Historical Society as librarian. I like being able to satisfy the information needs of my client. And of course, finding that elusive piece of information that took a while to find, but very satisfying when it is actually on you. And of course, I like to see the end product, how the client uses that information, whether it is in a book, a film, a play, to satisfy their information needs, but also to the benefit of the wider clients. But more so, I think I like the dynamism of libraries. Before, libraries were seen as dusty old places with stacks of books where people would go to borrow a book. Today, libraries are so much more. Technology and changing information needs have made it possible for libraries not to wait for clients to come, but to leverage the technology and their resources to get the information to the client, not just to handle a book. The way to achieve this here at the museum is in our online series called This Day in History, which we started in 2014, because I felt that whenever there is a snippet about this day in history, it was always international history. So this day in history was developed to honor little known facts about Barbadian history. And over time, what we have found that has sparked an interest in the wider public. Persons who may not normally visit the library call us to find additional information about the particular subject being featured. Or of course, they share their own information on Facebook and on Instagram. My role here at the SHILSTONE Memorial Library is wide and varied. Of course, I manage the library, which means I manage its services, its resources, deal with the budgetary and reporting obligations. I also support the information needs of the museum, whether it be for an exhibition or for some other activity. And in addition, biggest part of my job really is to liaise with clients. These are both persons who visit or persons who contact us by telephone, letter, email, however they contact us, and to try to satisfy their information needs. I also coordinate the genealogy group. This has been going now since 2014. I coordinate their activities. From time to time, I may be called on to be part of a community event put on by the museum. For example, in regathering, the short-lived regathering, we would have put on an activity for that, for St. Peter. Sometimes they may be asked to supervise interns, to supervise a UWI practicum, or even speak to a class about the resources here at the museum. So basically the job here is wide and varied. At the most basic level, we make sure the library is tidy, there's comfortable seating and Wi-Fi. Everyone wants Wi-Fi these days. In these COVID times, we also ensure that there is social distancing, wearing of masks and sanitizers on hand. To promote that, we only take bookings in advance and we limit our seating to 2 persons so that our clients are comfortable. They don't have to fear that the library will be overcrowded. I think one of the main ways of creating that inviting environment is the interaction between librarian and client. So what happens when a client comes, we greet them very pleasantly, we advise them of the rules and regulations, and we seat them. Once a booking is made in advance, we make sure that materials are already on the table for that client so that he can start to work right away and there is no downtime, so to speak. But during that time, we also go to the client to find out how they're doing, their progress, and from that progress, suggest other sources they can use. I think librarians everywhere will tell you that the challenges include lack of resources, lack of money, lack of manpower, lack of time, and the Barbados Museum is no different. This is compounded by the fact that we are living in the information age. There's an exponential increase in information, and patrons want information 24/7. And of course, COVID 19. COVID 19 has underscored the need for remote access to information since persons are working from home and visits to libraries remain limited. But as librarians, we try to meet those challenges head on and try to find solutions. For example, here at the museum, with our limited resources, we launched a homegrown digitization project for our journal. Our journal has been in existence now since 1933. A year before we actually had a physical space here at the Garrison, we had that intellectual space in our journal. So it is in wide demand both in Barbados and outside of Barbados. So it is a good candidate for digitization. However, our resources are limited. So what did we do? As I said, we launched a homegrown digitization project. So during the second lockdown, our receptionist here was trained to do the actual digitization. The equipment was at her home. As I said, we went through the paces. She knew what was to be done. And she worked on digitizing those documents. Today, we have all of our annuals have been digitized. from volume 39 to 66. Most of them were digitized by our receptionists. The later ones were born digital, so they were already in the digital sphere. So what we have now is a resource, both at the article level. So each journal there's a PDF of each article, and there's also a PDF of the complete journal. So these are available for any researcher anywhere. I think that physical libraries are still very relevant. I know there's a lot of information out there on the internet, but there's still a lot of information that has not yet been digitized. There are also many persons who, for whatever reason, cannot tap into the technology. So they need to go to libraries to access information, speak with a librarian, borrow a book, or even make use of some of the continuing education courses being offered by libraries. In addition, there's a lot of dubious information out there. We've heard a lot about fake news. Librarians are trained to provide authentic information, so they're continue to be relevant even in this exponential growth of information. At another level, libraries remain a safe space for many persons who need that respite from stressful situations, to go into an air-conditioned environment, read a book, have a study group, speak with someone, or generally de-stress, which is very important in these stressful times. I would advise any aspiring librarian to go for it. I have found my job to be very satisfying. In fact, I love my job. So if you want to make a career of libraries, go for it. But I caution you to do your research. With the changing technology and changing information needs, there are so many other opportunities out there in libraries. So do your research and make sure you choose wisely. But when you're recruited to a library, don't be bound by your choices. Don't say that I'm a cataloger, so therefore I cannot do social media. Learn as much as you can. See what is unique to your particular situation and learn. Being a successful librarian is about lifelong learning and also about being client focused. You must put the client at the forefront and do whatever you can to ensure that their information needs are fulfilled.